Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. Much appreciated. So, as you can see, and as you read from the title, I wanted to do sort of a back to basics JavaScript crash course. And today we're going to be focusing on arrays. And I'm going to try to cram as much information and facts about arrays as I possibly can because arrays are such a common thing in JavaScript, well, in a lot of scripting languages, obviously, a lot of programming languages, um, and they're really useful, and they're basically something that's very essential, especially if you're working with APIs and JSON data. I mean, it's just something you can't get away from. It's something you're going to be using all the time, um, and you're going to be uh, bringing them in and ciphering through them, uh, storing information in them obviously. Now, technically, they are variables, but they're also considered objects because in JavaScript, everything is considered an object technically. Um, but so what I like to do on this channel is to take pieces of programming, particularly from JavaScript and other frameworks like React, and also PHP and HTML, CSS, and break them down into bite-sized chunks. So if that sounds good, don't forget to subscribe. Um, if you pick up anything from this video, from this crash course, please leave a like. Even if it's one small detail that you didn't realize that maybe I brought to you, leave a like. If you have any follow-up questions or just a comment in general, please leave it below. I usually answer comments pretty quickly, or at least I try to. So if that sounds good, I guess we can get started. So let me go over what I have here. So I have Atom Text Editor on the left here, with just a folder, Arrays Crash Course, and I have an index.html file, and I held down the tab key, and typed HTML, and it hit enter, and it gives you this basic boilerplate, and then I just put some text in here, which is this, and then I added our main JavaScript file here through script source at the bottom so that there's no so that everything on the HTML loads first and then JavaScript loads at the end. Since you want your visual elements and your structural elements, aka HTML and CSS, to load first and then JavaScript, because basically people aren't going to be interacting with the site immediately, but you want everything to load properly before any functionality loads. And then here's our main.js file, which is linked right here in the source. That's how you do it. And then I just have a simple console.log hello world, which is over here. And since I'm using Atom Text Editor, I have the Atom Live Server installed, and I'm running that on my local machine, 127.0.0.1, port 3000, which is automatically assigned by Atom Text Editor. And here's our hello world message, right? If I add a couple of exclamation points and resave, you can see it automatically updates without us having to reload anything. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to, actually, I'll keep this console.log since we're just going to log things to the console so I can show you results. We're not really going to put much into the HTML. This is just for decoration. Most of what we're going to be doing is loading it into our console, which you get by, I usually right click on the web page and then hit inspect and then go to console. But I think there's a shortcut F5 or something, whatever, you can Google that. Let's see, so save all, so we get nothing. Okay, so first off, I want to start by saying, like I said, an array is technically considered an object since everything in JavaScript is considered an object. But what an array is basically a variable which can hold more than one value. And I think that's important to note, is that if you create a const, and we're going to be using const and let in this, const a equals, const a equals 1, and then we console.log it. Okay, we're storing a variable for later use Okay, so this A can only store one thing at a time. If I try to put three things in there, it's going to give us an error, right? Unexpected number, because you can't have more than one assigned to a variable, even if it's true and you want it to say false, it's going to give us an error again. You know, you can't put strings, hello, and you can't like put these together like that. Okay, just doesn't work. It's an error. You know, but of course, if you just put A as hello, a single string, then it works, of course. So what arrays allow us to do is store a more than one uh, things of information in one group. Okay, and so this is what an array looks like. It's basically uh, held in brackets, the straight line brackets, not the curly brackets. Okay, this is an object, this is an array. Okay, so let's create our first array. Const array1, I'm just going to store it in a variable so we can use it later. Okay, now if we left it like this, let's do this array1. Zoom that in so you can see a little better. Okay, you can see it gives us an empty array. Okay, all right, so that's technically an empty array. Now when we start putting information in here, if we just put a 1 in there, let's see what that gives us. Okay, this gives us an array with one value, and there you go. Now here's where the functionality comes in. You can put more than one thing in an array. Now we're using numbers, but it could be anything. String, number, Boolean, which is true or false, primitive value, primitive variables, which is string, number, Boolean, and others. And as you can see, it stores it in this array. So this is our information, right? That's how it's given to us. So say one, and by the way, they're separated by a comma. So whatever it is, const array one, excuse me, 1 through 5, and there we go. Now, this is our array here. Now, if we want it, so basically it just spits out the entire array. Let's say we wanted to get the first value. It's going to give us 2. Now, why did it give us 2 instead of 1? That is because arrays in JavaScript and a lot of other languages, programming languages, arrays are zero based, meaning that they start at 0 and then go to 1. So if we want the number 1, we put 0 instance. This is so this would be 0, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Now don't get confused because of numbers. So let me delete this and say apple. By the way, we're creating strings now. Orange, oops, and we'll say peach. Zoom out there a little bit. Okay, so if we say 0, it's going to give us apple because this is the first place represented by 0. If we wanted to see the orange, there it is. So it's number 1, and number 2, the last one, would be peach. Okay, so that's how we can get single values from the array. So we're going to go over a few things. We're going to go over a few things here, but I just want to get the basics out of the way. Okay, so why use arrays? You know, you can create, in JavaScript, you can create as many as you want. I'm just going to comment this out for now. So, whoops. Oh, well. Yeah, that's all right. I could delete it. So we're going to say const a equals apple. Okay. We're going to say const o equals string of orange. Oh, it shouldn't be commas here. Sorry, it should be semicolons. And we're going to say const p for a string of peach. Now, you can do this, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a little sloppy and it's a little, uh, it's just too much to try to do all that. Now, as you can see, we can get it and we can call them easily and we can just call them one by one, but that's a little tedious, and you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be mucking up your code with a bunch of crazy amount of variables, okay? So instead, we put it into an array, okay? So that's apple, oops, yeah, orange, peach, array 1, and there we go, there's our array. Now, what should we do next? Let's see, I kind of didn't really have a game plan here, guys. I'm just kind of winging it, but I knew I wanted to do something on arrays. Let's see, can we show you? All right, so you've seen, so we've seen strings and numbers. We can type true, false, true, false. So it could just be a bunch of booleans, true, false, true, false. We can have a mixture. You can have apple, 30, the number 33. We could have orange, like that. We could have false. Okay, so you can mix it up. It doesn't matter. So it just stores values. I mean, that's really what it does, and it stores a multitude of values. Now, so this is our array 1. I think I'll leave that for there. Leave that for now. So let's create another one, another array. Call this array 2. I know, very creative. So we're going to create an array. Now remember how in the beginning how I said down here, this is an array, this is an object. Well, inside of arrays, you can have objects inside of an array, and then you can have an array inside that object. So let me show you what I mean. So this is where we start getting into data that we're transferring, like something that you would see similar to an API returning to you. And I'm going to go to JSON typey code, which is a fake REST API with just a bunch of dummy data. I'm going to look at these posts. Now notice this looks familiar. This is our array, and it has, this is one object here, this is the second object, third object, and so on. Now you can have numbers, strings, etc., and then an object, or all objects, or booleans and then an object. Doesn't really matter. So let's go over the syntax. So we're, you know what, I'm going to take a few of these just to save some time. Oh, you know what? No, I can't, because it's got all, well, not that I can't, but it's got, so in JavaScript, when we write quote unquote JSON, it's not really JSON. It's true JSON has quotes around both the key, that's this, and the value, which is this, the actual information. But in JavaScript, we write the keys with no quotes, but the information has a quote. Title 1. So I'm just going to go along with this. Actually, I'll do post 1, and we'll write body here. And oh, I'm sorry, there should be a comma separated by commas. And we'll do quotes, and then I'm just going to take this. Okay. And then I'm going to copy this because we're going to create our own we're going to create our own dummy JSON data. I'm going to put this as post2, comma to separate the object. I'm going to put another one and I'll say this is post3. 3. All right, so I'm going to go back to our example here, save all, and there we go. Oh, I'm sorry, we got to change this to 2. 2. And there's our array of objects. And as you can see, our title and body. Don't worry about that it's um, backwards like that. That's just the way it's displayed, but we can access it just as easily. So, as you can see, that's our array of objects. Now, if I wanted to put in here, say 100, comma, 200, comma, 300, comma, to separate, always separate with a comma. As you can see, our array has 100, 200, 300, and then our 4 objects, or 3 objects. If I wanted to put in here apple, orange, save all, then it gives us those. So now we have 8 in our array, 100, 200, 300, apple, orange, and then our 3 objects. Okay, so that's how it works, and all encased in these um, brackets. Okay, so now, like I said, inside an object, you can have more objects, or you can have another array. So let's do this. Let's delete these. These are kind of a lot. I'm going to delete everything inside the array. So we just have an empty array. I'll show you. Back to an empty array. All right, so let's do this. Let's open it up. Let's have an object, and we're going to say, book. No, you know what we're going to say? Title. I'm going to say book 1, and we're going to have this. We're going to have year as a key, and then we're going to have an array. We're going to say 2018, comma, 2019, comma, 2020. Let's just create this a couple more times. Separated by a comma, comma, whoops. Sorry guys, hang on. Got to take both opening and closing curly braces because we're making an object. We'll say book 2. And we're just pretending that these years are just release dates or whatever. I'm not really sure. But just so I could show you. And we'll say book 3. Now let's, so this here is an array, but it's inside an object that's inside an array. So excuse me, so you can just have, you can just continue to build and build and build. So let's take a look at book 1, and then year is an array. Okay. Now you can have, let's say, you can have, let's add comma author. I think that's spelled right. Oops. And you can open an object and you can say name Ted Smith, comma, and let's have other works, and let's put that in an array, and we'll say book 1 as a string, another string, book 2, and let's copy that down a couple more times. Gotta put a comma here. Let's change this to oops, change this to John Johnson. I know, very creative. So John Johnson has book one, book two. Screw it, we'll add book three just to make it a little different. And we'll come down here and we'll add Jane Smith, and we'll say whatever, she has the same. Let's save that and see what we get. There we go. Here's our array of objects with our three objects. Let's take a look at book one. So here's our author, here's our title. Let's take a look at our year, which is of course an array. See that? 0, 1, 2, because arrays are zero base, meaning they start at 0. Our author, his name right here is Ted Smith, and then his other works is an array, 0, 1, because he's got 2. And if we look at, where is it? Book 2, author, other works, 0, 1, 2, because he has 3. So this is, this is really great, you know. Um, and like I said, I mean, you can go crazy with this. I mean, you can even do this here and then add an object in that. And you could say you wrote a magazine. I spell magazine. Jesus. Magazine. I don't even know how to spell right now, guys. I'm a little sleepy. Magazine. Let's say he wrote for Time Magazine. And that's book one. Here we are. Book one. Author. Other works. Magazine. Real nice. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick. We won't get too much into this because it's getting into a different subject. But in here, you'll see we have proto. So basically, every array has these built-in prototypes that you can use to search. Okay, we're gonna go to a few of these like dot push. Okay, you can use dot pop, dot slice. So these are methods that are attached that are in core JavaScript, and as you can see, there's a ton of them. They're fun to play with, but uh, whichever. And actually, I'm going to delete all this. Just going to delete all that for now. We don't really need that. Let's say 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5. Okay. Let's open that again. All right. As you can see, even though this is just numbers, you still have all these ones. Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about this. This is a common one, dot push, that you're going to use a lot. Okay. So let's come up here. I'm going to comment this out for now. Let's keep working with this array too. I'm going to come down here and create another variable. Now I'm using let here. Actually, I should use const just for sake. So we're going to say results is going to be equal to array array2, sorry, dot push, and we're going to say 6. Now what dot push does is it pushes onto the array. It adds to the array. Okay. So right now we have 1 through 5. We're going to push onto it the number 6. Let's see if that works. And there we go. And there's our number 6 array. Okay. Now keep in mind, this doesn't change array2. Even though we're storing it in a variable, it just creates a new array with this, with the number added. Okay. So that's how you can add to an array without actually changing it. Okay, so that's kind of fun. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so let me get rid of that. So that's dot push. I mean, it's pretty easy. I mean, you can put anything in here. You can put a string, and as you can see, it adds it. It always adds it to the end. That's what dot push does. It adds it to the end. All right, let's do another one. Okay, so we're going to keep this constant variable as results, and I'm going to delete all this. So array2 dot a method called toString. Okay, and let's print out results. And as you can see, it turns it into a string. And if you do type of is a core JavaScript thing that it'll just tell you what a particular variable is, a string, a number, a boolean, etc. Save all, and it tells us it's a string because we changed it to string. Now, if we didn't do this, if we did type of array2 before it changes it, you can see it's an object, even though it's an array. Like I said, everything in JavaScript is an object technically. All right, let's see. So there's another one. Now there's a bunch of these, as you've seen. There's a whole list of them, and that's just a few of them. Excuse me. Let's do this dot pop. Oh, sorry. Should probably change this to results. And as you can see, it gives us number 5. Actually, no. This should be array 2, because here we are actually changing the array itself. And as you can see, now we get 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes off the last of the array. And there's some other ones like .shift, which is a method that moves the first array element and shifts all of the elements to the lower index. I guess I could show you that real quick. What the heck? Like I said, there's a ton of them, and once you understand what they do and how to create an array, then you can play around with them. It's kind of fun, actually. So .shift, it removes the first element of an array and then shifts all the other elements starting at 0. So instead of 1 being 0 because it's removed, it starts at 0. It doesn't start at 1 for number 2. I know that sounds a little confusing. Let's see. There's Unshift method that adds a new element to an array at the beginning and unshifts older elements. So if we do unshift and we say 88, just to differentiate it, you can see it adds it to the beginning and it moves 1 to 1 and 2 to 2 and the position. This is the position, these purple zeros, and then this is our number. So it just shifts everything down. Let's see. I mean, there's a ton of these, and you could play around with them. Let's see. Splice is a good one. But I mean, you could play around with those. So next thing I want to do is, so there's a for each or a for loop. Okay. Now, like I said, look, if we have this array 1 through 5. Okay, let's save that. Let's just console log it. As you can see, it gives us this. It just gives us the array instance. Now, what happens if we want to print out each one individually? Okay, let's do this. Let's just play around here for just a second. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything in the HTML. So I'm going to come into our document and I'm going to create a div with an ID of example. Oh, I don't have Emmet installed, sorry. Div with an ID, ID equals example. And this is just a grab onto it. And it's going to be an empty div, nothing inside of it in the HTML. Okay. Come back to main.js. Now, let's do this. Let's do What should we do? Let's do document dot get element by ID. Put our ID in there of example of our empty div. We say dot inner HTML. This is core JavaScript equals array 2. Okay, see what that gives us. There you go. It gives us that. Now it gives it to us in that form. Now it gives us just this. What if we just wanted to put them in a list? I guess we could do that. We could say open up that unordered list, close off the unordered list. This is kind of getting into HTML territory. Now watch this. So we're going to open a list item. List item. Close off the list item. And then let's, inside of here, I'm going to put more curly braces. I'm going to put a plus to concatenate it. And we're going to put our array 2 and then concatenate it with the JSX. And you can see, now as you can see, it gives us the list item as evidenced by this bullet point. Actually, I put some styling in here. I'm going to get rid of this just so you can see. But as you can see, it gave us all the numbers all in one list number. That's not what we want. So we want to print 1, 2, 3 as a list. So what we can do is this. It's called .map, which is a high order array method. Okay, so we're going to, which is a way of cycling through arrays. Now, you know what? Let's start with a for loop because that's a little, it's an older version, but it's a little less direct. So we're going to type for, and we're going to say const I for iteration as array 2. And then we're going to open some curly braces. And then I'm going to take this and move it inside of here because whatever you want to print out, you have to put it inside the for loop. And here I'm going to say I. Let's see what that gives us. Missing initializer, const declaration. Oh, I need an equal sign. Sorry. What the heck is it? Bear with me, guys. I'm sorry. This should be variable of I in array 2. 4. That's not it. Anyway, so that's it. Let me see. Hang on. Forget what it is. Oh, okay. I know what it is. So this has to be, we have to reference the array 2. And then remember before where we put 0, which will give us, hopefully, yeah, it gives us 1, which is the first instance. But since we're in a for loop, we have to put I, which was our variable, our iteration. So it's going to loop through the array. It's going to get to 1, go, okay, I got that, print it out. It's going to go to the next one, next one, next one, next one. Hmm. Oh, I know why, because I got these lists in here. Hmm, let's actually delete this. Let's put a p tag in there. That's why. So it's the JSX, which is what this is, slash p. So it's giving us a little bit of an error. I'm going to say break tag just to put it on another line. Yeah, it's still giving us 5. Huh. Well, anyway, it loops through it. So the better one is array2 dot map. Okay. So it's technically a method, but it's a high order array method. It's just a cleaner way of doing it. Now, so dot map, and then you're going to assign a variable, just like we did before. I'll say I, again, for consistency's sake. And then we're going to open up another set of parentheses. Okay. And let's see, let's say, put, you know what, I'm too tired for this, guys. Let me just uh, document.get element by ID. Okay. Example dot inner HTML is equal to array2. No, sorry, is equal to I think that should be right. Okay, guys, so what I'm doing here is, sorry about that. So I am going to save this to an array, let results, we'll say again, equal array2 dot map. Okay, so we have this parentheses here, opening and closing parentheses, and we're going to say I, and then we're going to console log results. Let's see what that gives us in the console. And there you go. It maps through the array. It spits it out individually. Now, we could say I plus 100, because that's the function. And then as you can see, we get 101, 102, 103. And you could do all types of stuff. You could say multiplied by 100, stuff like that. So it takes each individual one, right? If we commented this out and did array 2 multiplied by 100, that wouldn't work, right? Because array 2 is not a number, it's an object. So you have to use .map to iterate through the array and then print it out. So that's how we go through an array. Okay, so I showed you the different the different methods you can tack on, like push, pop, slice, unshift, all those type of things. And there's a ton of them. I will leave a link in the description to the MDN web docs, mozilla.org, which is like the Bible of JavaScript. And also I'll leave the description for W3 Schools, which is another resource you can use. I don't care what people say, that's a decent resource. Let's see, anything else we can do? I think that's it, guys. So for a crash course, I'd say that's not too shabby for arrays. So hopefully I answered some of your questions and also showed you maybe one or two things that are new in how we treat arrays. You know what? Let's do one more thing. Remember how I showed you this JSON placeholder.typey code and how we have one big array full of objects? Let's do that. So we're going to use fetch, the fetch API, which comes with JavaScript. And I'm going to do fetch, which is a function, and I'm going to use that. Now, fetch uses promises, so we do a dot then. You could do a sync await, but I'm going to do dot then. And I'm going to say res. Now with fetch, you have to set res to JSON to tell it that it's JSON, and then you do another dot then, and you do res with a callback function to res dot data. Okay? And actually, let's console.log res.data. Let's get rid of this results because that's going to give us an error. Save all. You can also do a dot catch error. Log error. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Forgot to. This is supposed to be res.json with parentheses. This is res or console.log the whole res. There we go. There's our 100 because this is a basic API. So there's all our things. Okay. Now, um, hmm. Yeah, and there you go. And let's see, we could do res.map, and we'll say post, since these are posts, with a callback, and we'll say post dot title. Okay, so I did a dot map, so we're going to map through the array, and then we're going to console.log uh, post dot title. And as you can see, let me just refresh that. As you can see, we get all the titles. You can do the same with the body. And there's all the bodies. Now let me get rid of this real quick because I want to reiterate one thing. So let's say we have an object. Let K, I'm just assigning a random variable name, and we're going to have an object. We're going to say this is a person object. So we're going to say name is Ted Smith, whoops, is 33, comma, and email is tsmith@gmail.com. Now let's say I want to just print out the age, Ted's age. So let's do console.log K, which is the name of the object variable. Remember, this is an object, not an array. I'm just showing you an example. K.age. Okay, that's how we would get it. Simple as that. But if this were an array, let me just cut this out, delete all this, keep the K variable. I'm going to open our brackets, which automatically makes it an array. I'm going to open an object inside of an array and put that. Now, if we try to do age, K.age, it's going to say undefined because it doesn't know which one. Now, I could say brackets 0, and it's going to give us the first one. Oops, sorry. It's going to give us the first one. Oh, can't read property of 0. Okay. If I were to say 1, comma 2, and just have some random numbers in there. Oh, sorry, comma. 0. Okay, I'm really sleepy tonight, guys. Anyway, so what we got to do is let results equal k.map. I'm going to say person callback uh, uh, person.age. I think this is it. And then we're going to come down here and just log the results. 33. Okay. So if it was just an object, meaning just this curly braces, then we could use the dot person dot age. We could simply just log just this. But since it's an array, it has multiple objects in there, so you have to iterate over them. Okay, so let me just change this to 55. Let's save again. So now it gives us the ages of both. But if you, excuse me, if you didn't iterate, right, and you just put k.age, it would give us an error, undefined. All right, guys, that's it. I hope I did you some good and maybe showed you something you weren't aware of. Like I said, it was a crash course. I was kind of jumping through everything. I certainly did not cover everything to do with arrays, but I feel like I covered some good ground. I will try to edit this as good as I can because, like I said, I was a little tired tonight, so it wasn't in tip-top shape. But hopefully I went through arrays and didn't make it more confusing, but hopefully gave you at least a little bit of information to go with and how to deal with arrays. Because and keep in mind, like if you're working with something like React or Vue or Angular, arrays are very important, as you've seen from getting from a REST API. You know, it's nothing but arrays of JSON data. All right, look, that's it. Video's over, guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Take care of each other. Bye.